go ahead and start recording. Okay, so hi everybody. You all have probably met me since you picked up your Screech Owl box today or this last week, but my name is Leslie and I am the Conservation Director with the Trail Foundation. And this is my dad, Bill, and this is my daughter, Anna. It's a family affair over here. When we build nest boxes, we always like to have all the generations involved in our fun projects. So hopefully, you have, can share this fun activity with your family or friends or whatever. Today, we are going to be building Screech Owl boxes. Let me see one more. The waiting room. Welcome, Vicki. Thank you so much for joining the workshop. So we are going to be building Screech Owl boxes, but before we get started, I want to give you guys a little information about the Trail Foundation and what I do with the foundation. So the Trail Foundation is an environmental nonprofit, which is the primary steward of the trail around Lady Bird Lake and the adjacent parkland. So a lot of the work that we do deals very much with improving that parkland, improving the native habitat, improving plant communities, and increasing the ecological resiliency of this really special space. So a lot of you might be aware of how amazing the Colorado River is, and especially the stretch that goes through downtown. But Texas is, a fly through for a lot of migrating birds that both, stop in Texas on their way migrating across North America to South America or to Central America. And a lot of them are also permanent residents. So we really value the diversity of birds that exist in Central Texas. And one of our favorites is the Eastern Screech Owl. It is a super adorable, charismatic owl. You guys might be super familiar with it. It has like these identifiable little feathers, tufts that come up above its head that look a bit like ears, and they're very small owls that nest here in Austin. So one of the things that the Trail Foundation does is we really try to promote diversity in plant communities and in wildlife, and building nest boxes and building places for the birds that live in the area around Lady Bird Lake helps improve the ecological function of this space. So nest boxes are great. We have a lot of birds that like to nest in the cavities of dead trees. And in an urban environment, we tend to take away all those dead trees. And so that doesn't leave a lot of spaces for our nesting friends to live. So that's why we want to build Screech Owl boxes, so that they have a place to live and so that they can thrive around the lake. So that's a little bit about what we care about, why we're building Screech Owl boxes today. So I'm going to show you guys what we're going to build. So all of you have gotten a kit, and this is what the completed Screech Owl box looks like. The Screech Owl box is really pretty small. The little hatchlings will be able to live down in the box, and they're not very big. And the mama Screech Owl is also not very big, so this is a perfect size for Screech Owls. But before we get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the video that is the above view showing all of the parts. So as we construct it, you can see from top down what we're doing. Let me do that really quick. And I'm going to introduce you. Yes, my dad is showing you with his Vanna white hands all of the materials. So we're going to talk through all of the things that we are going to use today and that were in your kit. So the biggest pieces of wood that you have in your kit are the sides of the Screech Owl box, and then they have an angled cut at the top. The long piece of wood is what is going to be the back of the Screech Owl box, and also the board that will ultimately be used to mount the Screech Owl box to your tree. Then we have this special piece of wood that has these little kerf marks. This represents the front of the Screech Owl box, and these little kerf marks are like the little ladders that the Screech Owl babies will use to climb out of the box and perch on the top. This is the roof for your Screech Owl box. It's got these particular cuts that make it just kind of look attractive. We have a very small piece that's another smaller part of the front to make the opening for the Screech Owl box just a little bit smaller to prevent predators from getting into the box. And then the last piece is the bottom, and it should have 4 holes drilled into it. And these are drainage holes so that you never have water accumulating in your box. So those are the pieces of your kit. Additionally, you will have received a whole bunch of these screws. These are roofing screws, galvanized steel with a little neoprene washer. These are great for being resilient and holding up to the outdoors. And then if you requested them or asked them, or I convinced you to take some, we have some drill bits. We have an 1/8" drill bit, which we will be using to pre-drill the holes for the screws to go into. And then we have a nut driver. I've said this so many times today. A nut driver, a 1/4" nut driver, which will be used to drill the screws into the Screech Owl box. So before we get started on the actual construction, it's a 1/4". This is a 1/4" nut driver, and then this is an 1/8". Thank you, Natalia, for asking that question. Does anybody else have any questions before we get started about the things that you have in front of you? Okay, awesome. Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
The wood we're using is Western red cedar, commonly called rough cedar, and obviously because one side is smooth and one side is rough. The rough side is basically an aesthetic thing, and so what we try to do is always put the rough side to the outside. So that means that when we get to the sides, there is a left and a right, because if you invert them, then you get the smooth sides on the outside. So keep the rough side out anytime you can. The screws that we're using have great holding power, and if you're running them in with an impact wrench or a drill driver, it is possible to run them in so hard that you split the wood. Be cautious about that. And also, as we're putting it together, it's not necessary to run them in tight initially. Try getting them in close to where you're just close to the neoprene washer, and then get all your pieces assembled, and then go back and retighten everything. With the front piece is what we're going to start with, or it's actually the back, I guess. Notice that most of you will have a line at the bottom. That is the bottom. That is 2 inches up from the bottom. And if some of you do not have a line 2 inches up from the bottom, you might need to think about how you're going to get a line 2 inches up from the bottom, because that's where we start from. One thing when we were putting the lines on here that we didn't think about how nice it would be to just have a little line on the side of your 2-inch mark. So if you got a pencil, put you a little mark on there, and that will make it easier here in a minute. Do we know, Leslie, how many are putting the kits together that have already been assembled and they're going to do it with a wrench?
I think there is 2 folks. Let me let one more person in to the workshop. Hi, Erica. Thanks for joining. We're just getting started talking about all the pieces. There's 2 folks that are using hand tools today for assembling the kits.
Okay, for those of you that are working with the kits that already have the holes drilled in them, you will notice as you put the pieces together that there are some extra marks that indicate perfect alignment for the holes. So pay attention to your little marks that are on the boards, because that will make sure everything lines up.
Awesome.
Are we ready?
Thank you for all of that information. So we'll give you guys a second to just locate the 2-inch line drawn on your longest board. Let's see. Oh, speaker view. Is this? Do this. Yeah. Okay, so I have the video pinned. So if you, as participants, want to view this video a bit bigger, you can go to the top right corner per Brandon. Thanks for that little tip to see the main work video a bit bigger, and you can click on speaker view. Before we get started, though, I want to let you know that the drill is pretty loud. And if you have your volume turned up really loud, be aware that once the impact driver starts driving those screws in, it will be quite noisy. So I wanted to give you fair warning. If you have a sleepy baby in the room, maybe go to a different room. If you have a skittish animal, they might be alarmed by the loud noise of the impact driver. So just a heads up. So let us begin. Now, the 3 pieces of wood that you will want to have right now are your 2 sides and the middle, the mounting board. And what you can see in the top-down view is we will be mounting the sides to the back mounting board that will go ultimately onto the tree. But there's a little trick to get this to line up perfectly. Is you take the 2 side pieces and you set it like this. You kind of set it crosswise so that you can set your mounting piece on to the first side. Now, remember that 2-inch mark that's on your board. You want to line up, and I'm going to shift this just a little bit. You want to line up the bottom of your side board with that 2-inch mark.
When you put your screws in, stay away from the end of the board. Come in 2 or 3 inches. It doesn't really matter, how far in you come. Just a couple of inches to keep from splitting on the end.
So we're going to drill a pilot hole before we put any screws in.
Through, please. Thank you.
Okay, and here comes the noise.
And notice I didn't run the screw all the way down. Just close is good enough to start with. We'll do the top one. Through, please. So the right side has now been assembled. Take that one, and we'll put the left side on. Should we give them more time to catch up? What do we do?
Sure, let's give everybody about like 30 seconds to ask a question, make sure that that was clear, and see if you have had any problems with that. Let's also adjust this.
Technical issues.
Can you talk me through all of that, Lil? Can't tell if the tall part of the sideboard is towards the back or the front.
Yes.
That's a great question.
The tall part is to the back, and the reason is when we get the roof on, it will slope to the front.
So that is a great question. The tall part of the board is to the back and the short part is towards the front. Just kind of going through that again really quickly. The way that we set this up is we took our 2 side pieces and lined them up in a T shape. And by setting these two pieces up, lined up in a T shape, it gave a platform on which we could put the back baseboard. So lining up the two side pieces in this T shape, and then we set the back baseboard on. And then we found the spot where we were going to put our pilot holes and drilled a pilot hole on the bottom and the top, and then screwed in the screws. Yes, Anna? Sure, Anna, what would you like to contribute?
So you also might want to hold this board because if you're moving it, it like wobble and fall down.
The more helpers you have, it can be really helpful, but you can also totally do this on your own. Should the rough side of the piece be on the outside? Thank you, Charlotte and Alice, for asking that question. You are correct. The rough side should be on the outside. We like the rough side to be on the outside because it looks nice. The rough side of the backboard be outside. You can put the rough side of the backboard on the outside or the inside because both of them technically are going to be on the outside and exposed. For ours, we put the rough side on the back. So rough here and rough here. These are great questions.
Actually, we did smooth on the back.
Oh, we did smooth on the back. It's really okay. The owls will love it no matter what. The owls usually live in dead trees, so they don't even get a great architectural design like this.
As you put these things together, bear in mind that there's no close tolerances necessary. You know, as she said, they live in trees. They're going to be pretty happy with these, you know, just as they are, regardless of the cracks. This piece, the other side, you know, that we're going to put together, notice it's got a hole all the way through it. You know, it's just fine.
Okay, so we have another question from Charlotte. The 2-inch line. So where we line up the 2-inch line, and I'll leave that away for a second. So you can see in this above part of the video from the top down, the 2-inch line is where we're lining up the sides at the bottom. So this is the bottom, the slanted part is at the top, and this is the bottom, and that's where we're lining up the 2-inch line right here.
And the reason for leaving the 2 inches on the bottom is that that's going to be how it mounts to the tree, is in this space.
These are all great questions. Thank you all so much for throwing those in the chat. Those are wonderful. Okay, before we move on, I'll give about 10 more seconds for any additional questions. I'll kind of rotate this so you all can see what it looks like. The first side is on. The slant is slanting away from the back. We have 2 screws connecting the backboard to the sideboard. We have the smooth side inside. And we have the side lined up with the 2-inch line on the bottom. Okay, so Erica, you screw in the holes about 3 inches from the bottom and from the top of the side. You don't want to do it right on the edge because you can split that piece of wood. So you take about 2, 3, maybe 4 inches from the bottom and from the top, and that's how you line up the screws. But it can really be anywhere. If you can just get 2 screws in, but not quite right at the bottom. Okay, we are going to move on to the next board. And, you know, if you have any problems and need to revisit this video, we are recording it. So you will be able to review this video, and I'll send it out to everybody so that if you feel like you're not doing it perfectly, you can come back and look at it. And like we said, whatever hole, whatever shape you make your owl box, it really will be pretty great for the owls. Okay.
Okay, we're going to put on the left side now, and it's going to go on to the line at the bottom, just like that. So we'll turn it over. Turn it over, pick our piece under. This is where that little mark on the side at 2 inches is very helpful. And one. Drill your pilot hole 2 or 3 inches up from the side. Thank you, Anna. And here comes the north. And the hole at the top, a few inches down. And we have 2 sides on.
I have a question.
Yes, Anna, what is your question?
For the next thing, are you supposed to put the roof on first, or the 2 pieces that go on?
That is a great question. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bottom on next. So
How's everyone doing?
let's see. We will give you guys about 10 seconds to ask questions if you feel like you're having a hard time putting the sides on, and we can answer any more questions. Remember, the rough side is on the outside. The bottom is lined up with the 2-inch line that is marked on the back mounting board. And then your pieces are sloped from tall to low on the top side of the board. It looks like we don't have any questions right now. So I think we're gonna get ready to put in the bottom. So if you'll locate the piece of your kit that is a rectangle with 4 holes in it. And these are the drainage holes that allow any excess water that accumulates in your bird box to drain out and not pool in the bottom of the nest. So Bill, why don't you tell us about this piece?
Okay, so we've got our 2 sides on. That went very smoothly. This is the point where we start to see the imperfections in the wood and how that creates challenges for us. This particular piece, I don't think you can see it, but it's cupped, it's not flat, and that means that, you know, it will be a little more tricky. Whoa, that our bottom doesn't fit, folks. I did turn it. Okay, is anyone else having troubles getting their bottom piece to go in?
No, I'll trade you.
Good.
Mine's got space.
Okay, so what we're going to do? What we're going to
The
do?
gap is good. We don't mind a gap.
Gap is good. What we're going to do, because ours is tight, is we're going to remove one of these back screws. We'll just remove it. And then we should be able to get our bottom piece in. And the bottom doesn't require a lot of screws. I would suggest, you know, a couple inches down from the top on each side, and then one on the back. So I'm just holding it in place, drilling the pilot hole. Thank you.
And remember, when you are screwing the screws in together, don't screw them too tight into place, because, you know, because of the bowing and the imperfections in the wood, it's not a perfect puzzle.
You know,
kind of are working with it.
And it's fine to lay it on its side. It makes it easier sometimes to drill. Thank you, my screw assistant. Okay, so now that we've got those 2 screws in, we can go back to where we had to remove the screw from the back. We've got a little gap over here because the boards didn't fit quite right. That's just fine. We'll just drill a new hole, put in another screw. Okay, so we got the side back on, and we still need one more for the bottom, coming from the back into the bottom. This one is a little tricky.
Hold on, we have one question really quickly from Charlotte. I can't get my screws to go in. What am I doing wrong? I drilled the pilot hole.
What are you driving your screws with? I mean, do you have an impact driver? Do you have a wrench? Do you have, what are you working with?
Yeah, Charlotte, if you want to go ahead and come off mute and let us know how it's going for you, maybe we can diagnose your problem and then it can be somebody else.
Thank you. So I have this, it looks like what I'm supposed to have to put it in, right? It's like a wrench. Can you see it?
Over to your video.
Hmm. Can you see it?
Oh, hold on. I thought for just a second.
Hello, everybody else.
Oh, okay. See it. Yeah.
I mean, it just went in like it went in this far. It went in this far, but it doesn't want to go any farther. But there is a hole through. Maybe I just need to drill the hole again, the pilot hole again.
Did the hole go all the way through the wood?
It did, and into the board below, yeah. So I don't know why.
I can't really
hole
I
again.
can't see from back here.
I know.
Looks to me like you're working on putting the first two pieces together, the back and
Yeah, right. Yeah.
okay. And so once again, what are you trying to drive the screws with? Is it a drill? Is it an impact wrench?
I don't know the words. It looks like what Leslie showed me this morning. I'm using my own tools, but it's this. It looks like a. But it's fine. I'll figure it out. It's all right. I don't need to take all this time. I'll figure it out. It's all good. Thank y'all.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We hate to run off and.
No, I'll just redrill the hole and see if that helps.
If you, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just been changing drill bits between each hole, so that's just taking a little bit longer.
All I can say is that if your drill isn't running the screws in, is it powerful enough for the job?
It should be. It's a good drill. I'll play with it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Hey, Charlotte. Well, we'll be on afterwards, and we can also help.
Thank you.
Virtually, we'll try and work with that. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe check the direction of your drill. Oh, that's what I was going to suggest too.
Yeah, it's the direction is correct. It's just I don't know. I'll figure it out. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody.
Thanks, Charlotte. Okay, well, hopefully it gets resolved before the end, and we'll keep working on the Screech Owl box, and then we'll maybe see if we can help at the end. Okay, so we were able to get the two sides, the two screws on the side of the bottom.
We're working on the bottom. We did manage to readjust things so that we got our big board in, and we still have one screw to put into the back of the bottom. So we come through the bottom into the back. This is a little tricky because we got to know where that board is that we're going to screw into. If you've got a tape measure, you can come up the 2 inches plus half the thickness of a board, which makes it 2 3/8 inches to the center of that board. Or if you don't have a tape measure, you can take one of your other pieces and just scribe you a line. And that's the bottom where it is. So we're going to go right above that with the screw. Thank you. So we have our 3 screws holding the bottom in, and the bottom is installed.
Okay, so now we've got 4 of our 7 pieces put together. And the next piece that we're going to install is the roof of our Screech Owl box. So Anna, what does that roof look like?
It's kind of like,
Does it have some, the corners cut off the top?
Mhm.
Yep. So the end of the roof that sticks out away from the Screech Owl box,
it
has
looks
the
like a stop sign.
it looks a little bit like a stop sign. So so this is the roof, and we want to put the rough side on top.
And you also want to make sure, if you look at the back of the top, notice that it's not square. It's not a right angle, that cut. That's a beveled cut. And the idea is that the bevel fits into here to make a nice seal. So if you get it upside down, you will have a big crack. And as it is, we have very little crack.
So the bevel will line up because it's angled against the back mounting board.
But what about this piece?
We'll do that piece inside.
I mean, but how would it go on?
Okay. So the back gets 4 screws. The top gets 4 screws. And this is where you're going to start having to push and pull and squeeze to get things to line up. So get it lined up. Do your pilot hole. Whoops. And that's 2 out of our 4 screws. This is where it's going to, like I said, require a little pushing and pulling.
So just to respond to Liz's question about 1 screw on each side, you're correct. There's 1 screw on each side of the bottom and then 1 that comes in from the back. So 3 screws total that are holding the bottom in. And now that we're on the top, we're using 4 screws to attach the top to the sides.
Four screws in the top, and because of our bevel, we have a nice tight line here, which will help keep the rain from coming in. This is really the only crack that's of much importance, on the whole thing, because that one's on the top.
So I also want to let you guys know, if you guys are drilling holes and you find that you've missed the board that you're drilling into, it's totally fine to re-drill the hole. We have made a few of these so far, and sometimes you miss the board and you have to re-drill the hole, and it's totally fine. The owls really don't mind to have extra holes in their new house. Okay, so the next 2 pieces that we are going to be putting on the box are the front pieces. So the first front piece that we will be installing is a really special piece, and it is the piece of wood that you have that has the little kerf marks in it. So these little kerf marks, like we mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, serve as a little ladder for baby screech owls to take their little claws and claw out of the box and then ultimately fledge from the nest box. At the top of the little ladder, there is a little beveled edge, which is kind of like a little rounded end, and this is where the little screech owl babies can use their little claws to kind of grip this rounded edge, and it's a little bit easier for them to grab onto. I don't know about you, but thinking about little screech owl babies clawing up the little ladder and then perching on this little nest is just, it's really cute. It's really cute.
There are some photos on the internet of a baby and mama both sitting up here on top that are just incredible pictures.
If you ever need some, while you're getting to know more about screech owls and doing some research on your own, researching pictures of screech owls on the internet is a great relaxation technique because they're just really, really cute. So we're going to be installing the front with the ladder on the inside.
I have a question.
Yes, Anna, what is your question?
Or it's not really a question. It's kind of like a comment. So I guess the ladder should go on the inside. Make sure you don't screw the ladder outside.
That's
Very good.
right. Good observation.
And you also might notice that the ladder doesn't start for a few inches up from the bottom. And the idea there is that there's got to be bedding in here to, to fill up a few inches at the bottom, for the babies to hatch.
So we're going to be putting 4 screws into the front.
So the front is on, and the thing about the front is the front has to come off every year for maintenance. Just be aware. But that's how you get in the box, to clean it out.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about installation and ongoing maintenance for your Screech Owl box once we're completely done constructing it. But to make sure that your Screech Owls in your backyard are healthy and happy, it's important to do a little yearly maintenance on your little home. So the last piece we're putting on is the top front, and this just keeps the entrance to the Screech Owl box a bit smaller to reduce the number of predators that can get in there and reduce the impacts of extreme weather. Yes.
So it's okay if there's a gap right there. It's not slanted. So
Yes, because it is okay that there is a gap right here, because the rain and the wind will not be coming in through that spot right there. Good question though, Anna.
2 final screws. So at this point, all the screws are in, the box is built. Now is the time to go around and tighten everything. Once again, we've got that little neoprene washer underneath. All you want to do is compress the washer. You don't want to over tighten. And there is a completed owl box. Oops, one more.
One more screw. Oh, there we
One
go.
more screw. There is a completed owl box.
Yay!
Now we have our beautiful owl box. So you tighten down all of the screws, and now this little baby is ready to be installed. So before we start talking about installation or anything else, we'll give about 30 seconds for folks to start putting any additional questions into the chat so that we can help with anything before we start talking about how you install these into your yard. Hopefully you are finding it relatively easy to put together, and that you're able to tighten down the screws, and that you have a really neat box to put up in your yard. Yes, Anna, what is your question?
Like, should you build a nest for the screech owls? That'd be fun.
You actually don't have to build a nest for the screech owls. They'll bring nest material into the box themselves, and they actually really like to build a nest for their own babies. Okay, how successful is a box that's mounted to a house versus a tree? So thank you, Katie, for that question. It really is much more successful if the box is mounted to a tree, because the owls really are on the lookout for a very particular kind of nest. They're looking to be in trees versus houses where there is a perceived sense of danger. A house looks like something that could potentially put its nest in risk. So it would always prefer a tree. So I would say if there's a tree to install it in, it's a much better opportunity for the owls to be successful. But thank you for that question. Okay, so Erica, when will the video be sent? I'll need to try this. Don't worry, right after we're done with this session, I will send out the recording to everybody, both on this in the workshop and those who signed up for the Screech Owl Box, since not everybody was able to participate today. Okay, I'll give another 10 seconds to ask questions about construction, and then we'll start talking about installation. Grab that wire too. Okay, I have tons of trees. Is it better further from the house? Okay, you guys are very interested in the installation part. Thank you, Anna, for that question. We'll start talking about that. So if you are installing your Screech Owl box in your backyard, should we put, okay, before I answer that question, Anna, I'll answer Emily's question about putting a finish on the wood. Cedar wood is naturally resilient against decay and against insects because it has cedar oil in the wood. So you do not have to put a finish on the wood to make it last for a long time. But if you want to, just for the aesthetics of it, you can put a finish on the wood to keep its color, or you can even paint the outside of it. And screech owls will still definitely use it, but it's not necessary.
And I'd probably avoid putting paint on it, just because I don't think we want baby birds eating paint.
Very true.
As far as putting a finish on it, it's tough to get finishes that don't contain petroleum products, which is another problem for birds. I think probably offhand what I would recommend if you really want to put something on it to help the aesthetics of it is maybe the oil that you put on a cutting board. Some kind of food grade oil that will give it some protection and a nice color, and yet be completely harmless to baby birds.
Yes, that is great. Oil it up like your cutting board at home, and it will be perfect and edible for the babies. Okay, so let's talk about installation. So you have created your box so that there is a little bit of space, about 2 inches at the top and 2 inches at the bottom. These pieces are what you will use to install your Screech Owl box onto a tree. So selecting the tree and selecting the location for your Screech Owl box is really important. One is the tree itself needs to be a particular size and dimension. You need for the tree to be, if it's straight, up and down straight is really very nice and makes it easy to install the Screech Owl box, but it not only needs to be straight, but it needs to be as wide as this back mounting board. It can be much wider, but you don't want to install the Screech Owl box on a tree that is narrower than this. Bill, how wide is this?
5.5 inches.
5.5 inches. So the tree that you want to put your Screech Owl box in needs to be at least 5.5 inches wide at the 10-foot mark. So the Screech Owl box doesn't need to be in a low space. It needs to be at least 10 feet high up into a tree. And at 10 feet above the ground, the trunk needs to be at least 5.5 inches wide. So that can help you identify the tree that you want to install it into. Additionally, you want to install your Screech Owl box.
I can't hear you.
Same, we can't hear you either.
We lost audio.
Okay, is sound again?
We're
Thumbs
back in business.
Back in business. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not sure where you guys stopped being able to hear it, but the Screech Owl box, the opening needs to face either south or east, preferably. You do not want it to face north because that is where the coldest wind and the hardest weather comes from. So you want the opening to the Screech Owl box to face east or south. That is true of almost any of the bird boxes that you, or nesting boxes that you will ever install. Is east and south is better because wind and rain will be most avoided at coming in the entrance if you face it east or south.
When you're looking at orientation of your box, also bear in mind that you don't want the entrance facing close to a building or something like that. The birds greatly prefer if the opening is facing an open area, a more open area, so that they've got a glide path coming in, as well as they can sit there and hunt from their front door. So it needs to be facing an open area if at all possible.
Yeah, if it's possible. So that is, when you're looking at spaces for where to put the box, orienting it towards an open field, a tree line, a southern direction. If it needs to face west, that is also fine. Just don't face the opening of the Screech Owl box north, because it will get colder and it's less likely that the babies will survive if there's some severe cold weather coming through. Okay, so that's about orientation and placement of your owl box in the environment in your backyard. Then let's talk about how you mount it to your tree. So there's two ways that you can mount your box to your tree. It's really pretty simple, but you need to be aware of how it's going to affect your tree. So when you're mounting your box, it might not be easy to just stick it up against your tree and screw some holes into it. So you can use wire. So we have this kind of wire where you just wrap the wire around the mounting, the piece of wood that sticks out from the mounting board, and wrap that around your tree. If you do something like that, you need to keep a close eye on the growth of your tree, because if you have a piece of wire wrapping around the trunk, if you don't loosen it year after year, then the tree can grow and get cut into the wire, and it can really damage the tree. But sometimes that might just be the best way to mount the box. You just have to keep a close eye on it. Otherwise, if you don't loosen it year after year, you could potentially strangle the tree. But this is a really good way to cause no damage to your tree whatsoever, using wire or a strap just to wrap this around the mounting plate and around the tree. You just have to keep an eye on it every year. The second thing to do, and the second way to mount it, is you can take some deck screws. Depending on how, what your tree looks like, we have some 3-inch deck screws that we can use to just screw one screw into this top plate and one screw into the bottom plate. And that's all you need really, is 2 screws. We're trying to minimize the damage to the tree when you are mounting the boxes. So just one screw is all that is necessary. And we have 3-inch deck screws, but you know, might be better with even a 4-inch deck screw. It kind of depends on what you have on hand. Because if you have 3-inch deck screws, that'll be fine. So that is how, those are the 2 methods for mounting your Screech Owl box. So you just have to really keep an eye on, you know, you'll just have to make that determination depending on what your tree looks like and what you're wanting to do with your Screech Owl box. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is maintenance. We mentioned this earlier that you will want to remove this plate every year or every other year to clean out the nest box to prevent the accumulation of parasites or any kind of little microorganisms that might be growing in the nest or accumulation of water. So once or twice a year, you'll want to check your owl box, unscrew this front plate, and remove the nesting material that has accumulated inside the box. It's just a good habit to keep your screech owls year after year healthy and disease-free. So I think that's about it on all of the things for your Screech Owl box. Hopefully you guys have had a lot of fun doing this. And I know some of you have made Screech Owl boxes for the Trail Foundation. And we will be sending up a follow-up email directly after this, giving you information on where you can drop off the Screech Owl box for installation on the trail, and more information about volunteering with us on the trail to install these. As I've told some of you and kind of mentioned in the registration, this whole project kind of came out of an interest to install 10 Screech Owl boxes on the 10-mile loop around Lady Bird Lake. So, and then, you know, because of the pandemic and because of COVID and the opportunity to do virtual programming, we decided to expand it to allow, you know, as many people as we could accommodate to make these and put them in your yard. So we will be installing some of these, and we very much welcome the volunteers who have made some for us today to come out and help us install them. But we'll be sending follow-up emails to everybody to give you more information about what that looks like, scheduling, and all of that. Okay, so let's look at some of the questions. Katie, you asked, do we need to monitor for other animals moving in? Absolutely. It's important to monitor your nest boxes always for other animals messing with them. You might need to move them. You know, it's possible that a squirrel will take up residence, but a screech owl will be a pretty vicious mama and keep other animals out once they've decided to nest in the box. I've had lots of friends put game cameras inside their nest box to see the progress of their screech owl babies. And if your nest box is installed close enough to your Wi-Fi, there's lots of cool stuff on Amazon where you can do a Wi-Fi battery powered game camera inside your nest box that will transmit the video, you know, to your computer. So that's a cool way to monitor them, and they're not super expensive, and they're all over the internet and pretty easy to come by. So Rachel's question is, can we mount them now, or is there a specific time of year that is best? That's an excellent question. I'm so glad you asked. So screech owls usually nest and have their clutch of eggs around starting in March, from March to May. But depending on the weather, you know, we've got climate change, we've got all sorts of weird weather, and it's Texas, so weather is weird here anyway, that sometimes they can start nesting as early as December. That's on a really extreme year. So if you install them right now, they'll be available for your owls to use right away. I encourage you to do them if you What time of year should we clean out the box? Thank you, Anna, for that question. That's wonderful. I would clean them out during the summer, maybe July or August. Again, screech owls can start nesting as early as December, which is really, really early on an extreme year, but they can also nest into June as well, which would be a really extreme extension of their nesting season. So I would start cleaning out the boxes in July or August, or at least you can check them. Great, so we are perfect. We're right at 3 o'clock, and please feel free to keep throwing questions in the chat, and we'll be here to answer any questions for a little while. And we are so grateful that you guys joined us for the Screech Owl Box building workshop. Hopefully you had a lot of fun. Did we have fun?
We had fun.
We had fun.
Thank you. This was a first for me.
It was definitely a first for him. But you know, we're all doing fun things on the internet like this, and then we got to all build Screech Owl boxes on this beautiful day together. So thank you guys. Like I mentioned, I will send out a link to the recording. So if you had any issues building your box, or you need to check it again, or you feel like you need to just take the whole thing apart and rebuild it, you'll be able to have access to this recording. Feel free to email me with any questions, and also check out all of our really cool volunteer opportunities on thetrailfoundation.org. We are out on the trail every week, a couple times a week, doing all sorts of great restoration work. And you know, we'll start installing these Screech Owl boxes really soon. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for all participating today. It was such a lovely day, and we'll follow up with tons of information. Awesome. Erica, you will definitely get the recording, and you'll make the best Screech Owl box ever. We're so grateful you guys participated. It's really fun. Awesome. Yay. Oh, look at that Screech Owl box. Okay, I have to have a closer look. Nice. Oh, that looks so good.
Good
If you guys
job.
were able to finish yours, I'd love to see it. Oh, that looks so wonderful. Oh my gosh, Anna, your Screech Owl box looks great. Heather, that looks excellent. Oh, you guys are awesome. Fantastic. Dennis, that's such a great Screech Owl box. Love it. Emily, I love it. Look at those Screech Owl boxes. There are so many adorable Screech Owls that are just going to have the best new homes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys to, if you don't mind, take pictures of yourself with your Screech Owl box and email them to me. I will be so happy. That will be so cool. I'm so happy you guys get all those cool Screech Owl boxes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank everybody.
Thank you.
We'll stay on for like one more minute if you have any questions or need any help with anything. And thank you. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy this beautiful weather. And don't put a Screech Owl box on.
With the recording, could you send a like written how to mount and where to mount and maintenance like in text?
Totally. Oh, and I actually have it all in text too. I'll give some information. But if any of you guys are interested, here's some more information about Screech Owls. It's from the A&M's extension website. They've got all sorts of cool stuff to learn just about Screech Owl habitat.
And take a few minutes to look on the internet. It's just so cute. There's so much information out there, and it's all really encouraging because they enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Charlotte, if you need any help, hopefully you guys got it figured out.
Thank you. It was I just didn't have it turned on. I was so afraid of hurting the wood because y'all had said it was soft, and so I was being so careful. I hadn't had the power up high enough. So
Awesome.
now I'm gonna watch the video because I'm like 17 steps behind by the time I figured that out. So I will finish it in a little bit. Thank y'all so much.
Okay, thank you all, and yeah, look out for the email, and I'll have the recording, and then you guys can see it.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everybody. Have a good rest of your afternoon.